Don't start fights you can't finish.
I'll end it with one punch.
How'd that work out for you last time? Begin.
Hey everyone, it's Tom here, and joining me today is Dave.
Hello.
Hey, so today is the day we check out Injustice 2. What can we say about this? Well, developed by NetherRealm Studios, behind Mortal Kombat, and of course using their custom Unreal Engine 3. So we spent the day testing this and checking out various platforms, including PS4, Xbox One, and PS4 Pro. So I guess let's go through in turn and say, the technical specifications of each. So resolution, Dave, what are we looking at on a regular PS4 and Xbox One?
So regular PS4 is a native 1080p. Whereas on Xbox One we're looking at 900p. If you remember Mortal Kombat X on Xbox One, they were rendering at a lower horizontal resolution, so around 1360 by 1080. This time they've reduced the resolution on both axes.
But besides that, on the PS4, Xbox One front, are there any other differences before we move on to Pro?
No, that's basically the only difference there is the resolution. And in some respects, the resolution looks a bit sharper compared to MKX. In others, the jaggies are a little bit more noticeable.
Okay, fair enough. So the main comparison, I suppose, is between PS4 and PS4 Pro, the more interesting divide, really. And I can say the resolution on PS4 Pro is 1440p. I gave it a pixel count, and yep, sure enough, 2560 by 1440 when you have it set to 4K mode. Of course, there's also a few other extras thrown in there, so we can go through a couple. The developer, actually, NetherRealm Studios, outright declared a couple of these, saying shadowing, motion blur, and texture quality all get a bump on PS4 Pro. I poured over these comparisons, which we've achieved by playing the PS4 against a PS4 Pro running the same game and capturing both at the same time. So if you notice any occasional hiccups, it's usually as a result of online play, but generally it came out pretty well. But obviously in full motion, you're really not going to notice that much. It's one of those games where the improvements are so sort of subtle that you've really got to slow it down and zoom in and show the difference. So I can do that for you now. So I guess the first main difference is that resolution bump, and switching between PS4 and PS4 Pro, you're gonna get a decent boost in image quality, as you'd expect. It is worth noting that for those still on 1080p screens, you do get some form of extra anti-aliasing in the mix. Now, some shots I've tested show super sampling from around 1440p, as you'd expect, while in other cases it's less clear thanks to all that extra post-processing in the pipeline. But in general, if you're outputting at 1080p on PS4 Pro, you're getting a much clearer, more pristine image than a regular PS4. The way we check this actually is by using the first frame after a camera cut during a cutscene, where the post-process anti-aliasing basically goes away for one single frame. And during that small window, you can actually see what they're doing behind the scenes. On PS4, it relies pretty much solely on post-process AA, but on PS4 Pro there's another anti-aliasing pass working in conjunction with that, so it actually works out really well. Super sampling or not, it actually looks really good. Alright, so the other three differences: shadows, motion blur, and texture quality. Did you happen to notice any of these while playing over the course of the day, Dave?
Well, to be honest, the only one that stuck out to me was the motion blur quality. If you look on PlayStation 4, it's a little bit rough, there's some dithering there, whereas on PlayStation 4 Pro it's a lot cleaner, and it kind of looks more like sort of the motion blur you'd get with like movies. It's a lot more refined in that regard. Yeah, it is a lot like the resolution bump to PS4 Pro in that it just kind of clears up the edges. You're right about the dithering, it definitely looks like speckled artifacts on PS4. So if we kind of zoom in now, we can see PS4 and then moving to PS4 Pro, a much cleaner outline on these characters, and moving back again. Yeah, it's definitely an upgrade. And perhaps the next most noticeable upgrade on PS4 Pro is in the shadows. From what I can see, this isn't about regular shadows and the shadow resolution, but about ambient occlusion quality, and you very occasionally pick it up in like cutscenes.
Basically, PS4 Pro runs with a less aggressive ambient occlusion, perhaps a more accurate form of it. If I could hazard a guess, I'd say PS4 is running with screen space ambient occlusion, which tends to produce thicker outlines in corners, sort of filling out pockets of the world with shade. And on PS4 Pro, it dials that back a bit to make it a more subtle, refined approach to it. But generally, you're not going to notice either way. I think it's the game's moving so quickly, it really doesn't stick out as much as the motion blur and the resolution. And next up is that texture upgrade. Well, to be honest, I went through and didn't spot anything for the most part. Maybe one or two areas where it's slightly crisper. I found one example here where the texture on PS4 isn't as sharp as PS4 Pro.
Yeah, it looks to me like it's almost like that sort of mip-map issue in Mortal Kombat X, where the lower resolution on Xbox One meant that it would draw in a lower quality texture at a distance, whereas here obviously PS4 Pro is running at a higher resolution, so perhaps you're getting just that extra texture quality on further sort of mip maps as a result of that, because the difference doesn't sort of stand out on close objects or things like that.
No, that's true. Right, so those are the four main differences: resolution, motion blur, shadows, and textures. So let's look at performance next. Go into a bit more detail there. Now, there is 60 FPS as a target and 30 during the super moves and like intro cutscenes. There's a little bit of tearing though, isn't there?
Yeah, occasionally you get like a handful of torn frames. Now, I didn't notice this so much during gameplay when I was playing it, mainly during the 30 FPS cutscenes where there was an occasional sort of torn frame or two. But I noticed it did crop up a bit more noticeably when we were playing online.
That's right, yeah. Let's look at the versions in turn then. PS4 we've just had a look at. Xbox One, I've noticed a few more kind of torn frames during cutscenes, maybe one or two. And again on PS4 Pro, I haven't noticed anything so far. It's pretty clear sailing at 60 in gameplay and 30 during cutscenes without any sign of tearing. But yes, online I did notice more instances of tearing. It kind of runs down the screen up and down, but in very rare cases it didn't bother me at all while I was playing, and it was only in hindsight, you know, filtering through the footage that I actually realised, oh, there it is, there's tearing. So I wouldn't put this down as a big issue, and to be honest, you'd rather have the tearing than an absolute frame drop in a fighting game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. With fighting games, you're relying on the inputs and the input latency being steady throughout the game, so you can basically get those combos correct and the counters, that kind of stuff. The only thing I did find a little bit jarring is the switch between frame rates, because in normal gameplay you're getting 60 FPS, which looks to be locked at that level, but if you say you start pulling off a super move, the frame rate will momentarily drop down to 30 FPS, and if, say, your opponent blocks that move, it will go back up to 60 FPS in gameplay, which can be a bit jarring if you don't get like a consistent super, you know, the move doesn't get fully executed.
Alright, so that's a quick wrap up of what Injustice 2 does on PS4, PS4 Pro and Xbox One. Thanks Dave for joining me.
No worries, Tom.
So if you did find this useful or insightful in any way, please do give us a like or subscribe below. And as ever, there's a high quality version of this video on our website at digitalfoundry.net where you can get the original source file. But until next time, thanks for watching.